Hi everyone, right, we're going to talk about the Chinese ninja debate, and the basic aim of the question is going to be, did ninja come from China? Okay, it might be a long one. So basically, if you've just come up, before you go any further, if you like ninjas and you like China and you like Chinese espionage and everything, you want to be looking at this, The Ultimate Art of War, a step-by-step illustrated guide to Sun Tzu's teachings by me, Anthony Cummins, and you look at the 13th chapter, fully explained espionage, what Sun Tzu meant by espionage. Okay, so with that being done, let's move on. Okay, basically, there is a researcher called Les Kohn, and he started the debate of how close is the relationship between ninja and ninja-like agents in China. We both use the word Chinese ninja in these marks, but we don't keep doing that. Basically, we're not saying that the ninja started in China, or there is ninja in China, or the Chinese have a word called ninja or anything like that. What we're talking about is how much influence was there from China on the Japanese ninja. We're both assuming that the ninja are Japanese, but we're asking, do they have an antecedent, which means somebody who comes before them in China, and if so, how much? Okay, so I'm going to make a playlist called the Chinese Ninja Debate, and this video is the first in the playlist. I'll add Les's other videos to that playlist, so after you finish this one, you can go through it. But above all, I actually want you guys to give me some information. So I'm looking for some experts on Chinese history or some enthusiasts on Chinese history. John Hayter, we're looking at you. Okie dokie, right. So first of all, we have to have some underlying points made, some foundational points. The word ninja, shinobi no mono, the ideograms for it do not appear in China in that order. They do not. But they do appear in Japan to mean, of course, ninja. Now, the ideograms for kanja, which means spy, classic spy in this case, do appear in Japan, but I think only the ideogram for can appears in China without the sha next to it. Very quickly, guys, let me just... it annoys me when attacked by fire. So the 13th chapter of Sun Tzu, I don't know, there we go. So basically, the scroll for the use of spies. Now, this is the old one for spy. Now, that appears as spy in China and it appears as spy in Japan. But ninja is another thing. It is a type of spy, but ninja specifically connotates a branch of the military, let's say, or so far it does. Right, the next thing we need to get past is the idea that everybody in the world has pretty much had two things that are related to this: spycraft, spying on people, and special forces, or young lads who are willing to go beyond the norm of the normal troops, elite forces, to do something. They pretty much exist all over the world, even from just the brave lads in a tribe who are first to go, all the way to absolute full special force bombarder units, special force demolitions. You know, the worldwide, you can identify people with special skills and people who do espionage. So just because espionage is in China and just because there's special forces in China doesn't mean that they're automatically how the ninja started. Okay, so let's just get that down. Now what we have to do is track how much are they connected. We do that through language. We do that through shared skills that are outside the norm. So, for example, if we find something that's absolutely clearly ninja and absolutely clearly Chinese spy, and we find there's a reasonable excuse for them of exchanging this knowledge, you can safely say they did. So, right, so basically, hold on a minute. Okay. So they're the two fundamental things. It's just because they're spying and espionage and special forces doesn't mean they're connected. They can be in many countries. The Spartans had their, Cryptoria, something like that. Basically, the guys who went around murdering people at night, the proper rough lads. And the other thing is that language-wise, ninja does not exist in China from an ideogram point of view, even though they share the same written language. Okay, right, so let's move on to the next bit. Ooh, it's going to be a long one, this. Sorry, guys. Okay, first of all, first question for you lot. The ninja are pretty much hanging around from about 1300 to 1870. But what we're talking about, we're going to deduct the date 1600. After the date 1600, we don't care about any connection between China and Japan, because the ninjas have already been and done their stuff. They're already well established, and they are literally, Japan is in lockdown after this, so, and executing envoys. So there's no real way that the Chinese can affect the ninja after the year 1600-ish. It's just, it would be too much. So we do know, the second thing there though, is just because we're looking for the word ninja, that doesn't mean that there are other ninja-like figures before the word. It seems that the word ninja is in the 1300s, but goes out of use and is reused again in the late 1500s. And there seems to be 200 years missing, which we may fill in yet. We've not done all the research. So the next bit, so my question to you guys is, from the year 1300 to the year 1600, realistically 1550, what is the social and economic connection between Japan and China? What is happening between Japan and China in 1300 all the way to 1550? Let's just call it 1350 to 1550, 200 years. What is happening? Now, I do know we have the invasion of Korea, trying to get into mainland by the Japanese, but it's right at the end of our line. That's like the 1590s, and we want to try and keep it 1550s at the latest. So what is happening between China and Japan in those 200 years? That will give us a good idea of influx of information coming in. We do know that Chinese monks are coming in. We do know that trade is happening, but I don't know what's politically going on in China in those days, and I don't know what restrictions they have on Japan. Who's coming from China to Japan? Who's going from Japan to China to study military things? What's happening? So let's get rid of that one. Now, Les has spoke about, so I've got my notes here, excuse me if I keep looking down. So Les has spoke about Yebanto, which are the midnight thieves, and the Yabusho, or Yabusho, I'm not quite sure. He's from Africa, so his accent's pretty strong, right? No, that's Australian. When Australian, basically, it's not South African. I learned that from my last discussion on his accent. He's not South African. He's from elsewhere in, I think, Zimbabwe. I think, from memory. You just got to replace E with everything. So basically, it's Yebanto and Yabusho, which are unrestrained by night. So we've got midnight thieves who seem to be independent penetrator stroke infiltrators. Now, be careful here. I got tripped up on this. Les uses penetrator and infiltrator as two separate things. But in common parlance, that's a specialized version of the term, which they are totally correct. But in general conversation, people will interchange them, and I myself has interchanged them. So if we're going, we have to be careful when we say penetrator and infiltrator, what we mean. He is, if I get it the right way around for him, a penetrator is someone who bores in directly, and an infiltrator is like water who seeps in bit by bit. But again, what I'm trying to say here is, because Les might take you down that route, I am meaning them interchangeably, someone who goes across into the enemy and does something in either an open disguise or in a sneaky beaky, I've got black all over my face, you know, knife in the mouth. So what we have here is the Yebanto are, I'm assuming from his videos, independent thieves, used gangsters, thieves, you know, ruffians, and then you have Yabusho, which seem to be hired government agents. Now in Japan we have exactly the same thing. You have shinobi, shinobi. This is where everybody trips up, and I've said this a million times, and I'm sure my old guys here will know what I'm talking about. Shinobi can mean just creeper in, thief, but shinobi no mono can mean government agent who works for the state, who does espionage, but they then drop mono and it becomes shinobi. So you've got two types of shinobi. Shinobi, the person who is a thief, and shinobi, the person who works for the government. So we have this same dynamic here. Now, so what we find, but what I'm trying to say is that the shinobi, the Tozoku Nusubito shinobi thief, are not the government. I'm hired for the clan agents. Now, this is where it gets another layer of complications. You can hire them for a small amount of time, or you go into war, you say, I'll get the local thieves. That is a skill used, and they become ninja, annoyingly. So they are, so we've got two types of shinobi and two layers inside of that. So you might get the idea when somebody's going to war, the shinobi there who are trained samurai warriors, maybe Ashigaru, but they're warriors, they're military personnel who are looking around and they're going, right, this is my job, I'm going to infiltrate that, I'm going to do this. But at the same time, they might use their contacts in the underworld to get to the thieves and then hire other thief-like people to come in and work with them against that. So in the same camp, in the same army, at the same time, you might have two layers of shinobi, three layers of shinobi. You may have shinobi who are working for your clan, shinobi hired from Iga and Koka, and local thieves who are hired as shinobi. So you've got three types of shinobi all in the same clan from different backgrounds. So be careful here. So we do have government hired things and hired thieves. Okay. Now, Les says he can get espionage back in China to 2,700 years ago, but in reality, there's espionage everywhere, hundreds and thousands of years ago. So we're looking for a figure that is 100% espionage based, who works for the government, who portrays the ninja-like images. Again, you could literally say somebody working in the SAS is a ninja-like figure, but there's no connection between the two. Because actually the modern SAS and ninja are closer than ancient China and Japan in the medieval period. There is like 2,000 years between that, and there's only 500 years between this one. So the SAS and the modern Japanese person are closer in time, probably, but further away in social understanding of the world. So what I'm trying to say is, just because there's espionage in ancient China doesn't mean that there's not espionage in ancient Japan. There probably is espionage in ancient Japan. What we're looking for is a identifiable figure who uses the very similar tactics, probably uses the same ideograms for some things, and, can be within reason, once you pick all the points, can be said to be influenced from China. Now, what do the ninja say about this? There's ninja say they're absolutely influenced by China, but they normally talk about Chinese document Sun Tzu, and then they say there are, in the old documents, there's this word. Now we have to be careful here. We have to be really careful, because this is a trip up point. Alarm bells. Woo, woo, woo. So if basically somebody in 1600, which is where we get all our information from on the ninja, is writing about the ninja of the past, they have access to Chinese classics, and Japanese samurai who are subliterate, if that's the word, they are less literate than the monks and the aristocrats, always are trying to show how good they are. So they write in mock Chinese, which means not the writing style, the grammar is mock Chinese. It's called Kanbun. Yep. And the Chinese can't read this. You can understand the kanji, of course, but the grammar's not Chinese and the grammar's not Japanese. It's this hybrid sort of, look how posh we are. We're doing Latin, but getting it a bit wrong, because that's what Japanese people were like. So you've got them writing that. So somebody in the 1600 could be reading a book from 1,000 years ago and saying, yes, this figure here is what we do, and this is the same, and they're looking really cool. But in that 1,000 years, there was actually no interaction between the two, and they're reinserting that history before. If we had someone in the 1300s saying, actually we got this from China and I spoke to the guy from China and it'd be all right, but we don't. We just have people in the 1600s saying, yes, this Chinese classic says this, and this is very similar to ninja. So we don't know if there was a physical connection there, but the ninja believe so. However, in response to that, there are some ninja lineages that believe they are purely from Japan and there's nothing from China. But then you could say they are from the nationalistic period. So that's something else we've got to talk about, is the nationalistic period in Japan. So basically 1550s onwards, roughly, with Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and then Tokugawa Ieyasu. Basically, they're like, everything's pro-Japanese. Japanese are the best. China might have been great in the past, but they're not so good now. Off you go. So there's a definite shift in what. So before that, everybody was like, come on, China. And after that, everybody was like, look at us, Japan. Frank Sinatra apparently just turned up. You're right, Frank. So he comes. Right, okay, so we've had government, so then we've got stealth versus spy. We have to be careful that there are definitely two categories here. There is stealth and there is spy, and there is a mixture of the two. We definitely have just the outright guy who owns a sweet shop, right? Owns a sweet shop, listening in, getting stuff. Now, are they ninja? Are they not ninja? I have yet to find a document that says they are ninja. Normally, they are like Metsuke listeners or You know, it's difficult because the word ninja is so vague. I always come back to this. In the Shoninki, it says ninjutsu, or ninpo, sorry, is like a void. You can see it's there, but the edges are murky. So this is the same as ninjutsu. It's there, but when you try and focus on it, the edges are murky. It's like you can never focus on it. So is a man who owns a shop who is reporting on the movements of the enemy because he owns a shop in the enemy front a ninja, or a, not a Metsuke, sorry, they're a overt one. Oh, what's the word for it? Yokome, I think. Basically, and I think Yokome, they are a hidden watcher. So in armies, you get, in the Japanese army, you will get, or samurai army of Japan, you get Metsuke who are looking around, observers, they're literally there and everybody knows what they're doing. Then you get hidden informants who are within the troops who are reporting back. And that way you get dual things back. Now this happens the same in the world, that you have hidden informers in Japanese society who report on the government, report to the government on the people. And you have overseers and observers who openly go and inspect and say, right, I'm taking this, I'm writing a report on you. So everyone in Japan is always afraid of these two people, the person who's turning up to inspect them and the person who's watching them from the shadows, and they don't know who it is. So we very much get that dichotomy, if you like, in Japan, if that's the correct word for that term. No, it's not actually. No, it's not. Right. So basically, sorry, I'm reading my notes as well. So, but then we have the classic ninjas going in, infiltrating, penetrating, whichever way you want to put it. So what do we actually know then? What can we actually, let me start wrapping it up. We have some connections in language between old China and Japan. But the problem is those connections are taken from manuals that were written in the period of peace, who are looking back on China as a very, very, very nice ancient time. So they could be just nicking from the Chinese manual and saying, yes, we did this. There are legends that say they got it from China. No ninja is denying they got it from China, except for a handful of origin stories where they come from the Japanese gods. But that doesn't necessarily mean they don't also include the China bit, because in Japan there's this paradoxical idea where you can have something that comes one way and from the other, and they both all right. Like, it comes from the Japanese gods through China. And you ask them, like, excuse me, that doesn't work. The Japanese gods were not in China. Stop talking. You know what I mean? That's very much like that in Japan. Everybody just goes, okay. So we have that as well. Right, okay, so what we found then is we know that China is influencing Japan in the year 700, 800, 900, but we don't, and then still into, people are going back and forth to get more new Buddhism, and Buddhism is established in the land, and people are coming over. We've got 500 years of China setting up. So it's possible that China is influencing Japan with their warfare. Realistically, what you'd have to do is ask the question, how is warfare changed in Japan from the year 700 to the year 1000, and ask, is Chinese espionage solidified in Japan? That would be splendid, but that is a thesis in itself. Somebody needs to do a PhD on that. It's not something I'll just do this weekend for this video. It's massive subject. So then you've got to look at the warfare, which, because it changes now. Samurai are come around, let's use the year 1000. They're there before that, but they're established fully by 1000, and warfare changes. And they throw away the Chinese model. So does that mean that they throw away everything Chinese? Well, we know that's not true, because they do keep some Chinese parts of the military model. But on the whole, 90% is changed. Do they change the spine? Does spine even exist in the year 1000? Does it exist in the form of a ninja? But we know 300 years later, the word shinobi turns up to mean someone hiding in stealth. Okay, it's still debated about whether the Taiheki means a literal person working for the government who deals with stuff. We don't know. Probably not. My personal opinion is that the word shinobi no mono is a late 1500s word that turns up and is echoed then throughout. But at the same time, everybody's unifying at the time. We know that the words, the entire country comes together in this period. So we know that probably there's standardization. So the fact that the word ninja is difficult to find before that is probably doesn't mean they're not there. It means they're going under different names. Igamono might be one, Kokomono might be one. Kokomono might actually predate ninja. So I used to think Kokomono post-dated ninja, but actually Kokomono might be there before, Igamono might be before, and eventually people say, well, they are ninja, basically. They are the men of stealth. Not men of endurance, actually. It does mean men of endurance, but I think that's a little bit of a play by the ninja. So we do also get the ninja being used, the thief kanji. So the thief, so we have we have Yebusho, and I'm assuming sorry, let me get this right. Yebanto. I'm assuming the to from Yebanto is the same as Nusubito, which is the shinobi to. I'm assuming it's basically thief. So I'm assuming they're the same. So we do have a connection between thief kanji, meaning, you know, people are thieves. But the problem with that is the thief kanji representing thieves is not exactly rocket science or groundbreaking, is it? It's meant to. So it can't really say, oh, look at that linguistic connection, thief and thief, to describe thieves. Okay, do you know what I mean? That's too much of a stretch, too much. Okay, guys, so what I want from you is what happened in the military after, military before 1000, especially espionage. What happened to Chinese military after the year 1000? How much remained? Might be an unanswerable question. What is the position of China between the year 1300 and 1350 and 1550, which seems to be this golden age of the ninja appear? They suddenly appear in the Taiheki, they're there, and they're absolutely set in stone by the late 1500s. We know people talking in the early 1600s are talking like they've been there for generations. Like it says in the 1612, there's a guy who says for generations, since ancient times, which basically means past my grandfather, realistically. So 4 or 5 generations, ninja have been in Koka and Iga. So we know, like, back to the year 1500, let's call it 100 years, the ninja have already been in Koka and Iga, because one man tells us that they've passed this on for generations. So we know that. So we're looking at what is China doing in 1350 to 1550, and what is the interaction with Japan. After that, it is redundant. It doesn't matter what's going on after 1550. The Japanese are actually invading China by that point, or Korea going on to China. But they overstretch themselves and get pushed back. One of the most interesting things, why it's never been made into a film, I do not know. You know, a Western film is the invasion of Korea by Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Why do they do these daft things like with Tom Cruise? You know, remember they did. In fact, I'm going to do a video on Last Samurai. I'm going to have to do it. Right, okay. So the next up in the playlist should be LesCon's video. Rock till we drop. Let's hope LesCon gets to see this, and let's hope that we can find some decent information. And don't forget, subscribe to LesCon. When you go to his video next, subscribe.